Hello everybody, we're gonna paint together this scene from Madrid. It's a photo that I took a few days ago next to the Plaza Cibeles. It's looking to Calle Alcalá. The day is almost over and this street always gets really nice light by the end of the day. We're gonna paint against the light. It's gonna be a warm light, but we're gonna paint against it. And it's a kind of image that I really like to paint. So let's go. Alright, so I already laid out a basic sketch because today this is kind of like a sketch study for a subject that we could paint bigger afterwards. I wanted to make it like this. And first thing first, always wet your watercolor palette because it will be easier to get the necessary pigment afterwards. If it's not wet before starting, then it's gonna be harder for you to get the proper saturation of color afterwards. Okay, so always try to wet your watercolor palette before starting. You saw me spraying it once, but I already sprayed it before and it was already kind of wet, but I always add a little bit more water to the palette because it's much better. We start with yellow ochre. Okay, you could use a different kind of yellow. You don't really need to use the same. You could do the same or something similar with isoanilin yellow or with light sienna. I mean, something like this. Okay. I don't want you to take what I do literally. Sometimes, you know, this is just an indication on how to do things, and then you can work them in the way you want. I'm adding a little bit of Pyrrole Scarlet to the mixture of yellow ochre because I want to suggest some high clouds in this area. I'm not gonna really paint them. I'm just gonna suggest them. Okay. So, you know, the day was really sunny that day, and it's not many clouds in the sky. But you know, sometimes when the sun is going low, then it illuminates the sky in a different way, and then you start seeing clouds that you didn't know they were there, you know, just really light clouds, and they get really either sometimes pink, sometimes orange, sometimes red, and just by doing these quick brush strokes we can suggest them, and we give the sky a little bit of atmosphere and perspective as well. I just added a little bit of lavender to suggest the idea of shadow in the clouds. And now I'm gonna use still a little bit more lavender, some alizarin crimson, and some cobalt blue or ultramarine. I use cobalt, but you could use also ultra blue, just to make this kind of purple in these parts of the painting which are in the shadows. Let's say it's a warm shadow, you know, but we're painting right now. We're just doing the basic the color of the atmospheric. This is an atmospheric color, let's say. It's not the color of things as I see them, it's just an atmospheric color, and then we're gonna paint the buildings on top of it, of this atmospheric first layer. Okay, we're painting the light, and then we will go with the shadows. I'm putting some of this mixture a little bit on this building here because it's right in front of the sun. The sun is hiding behind this building, so this building will look a little bit darker than other buildings that are all nearby, but still the sun is kind of wrapping up this building. I also used some paper tissue behind this building because I wanted to enhance the idea that the sun is hiding behind it. So that's why the sky looks a little bit lighter right behind this one. I just dry the paper before starting to paint the buildings. I'm gonna use some of the mixture I used before of yellow ochre and the Pyrrole Scarlet. I'm gonna add some raw umber into the mixture. You could also use sepia or Van Dyke. A little bit of cobalt blue just to desaturate the mixture a little bit. It's a warm mixture, let's say. It's a brown that tips a little bit orange. And I'm gonna use this to explain this building, which is right in front of the sun. I'm gonna paint mostly every building in one go, and I will paint the shape of the buildings, leaving some little gaps, little unpainted areas to show architectural details that are part of these buildings. Okay, I always do this when I love painting against the light because it gives you the opportunity to not worry too much about certain details. You can mostly paint everything in one go, and just by leaving small gaps here and there, you will immediately suggest the idea of architectural details, of three-dimensional changes that take part in any building. So I really like painting against the light. You see how I just left some a small white line without going over it, because there's a small, let's say, change in the surface of the building there, and just by adding that line, just by not painting that line, I already suggested it. And then something that you want to do is changing the temperature of the shadow every now and then. So I am going to add some cobalt blue with the previous mixture of lavender, Elysian crimson and cobalt blue in order to cool off parts of this shape that I just painted. And this is something that I always do. Shadows are not flat, shadows have color, shadows have reflected light, and mostly never you want to have them just as a flat surface with no color variance. So keep that in mind. Have always 2 or 3 mixtures ready, so you can just use those mixtures to blend colors within the painting, letting the colors to blend in naturally and organically in the painting. Now for this building is a little bit closer to us, so it's gonna be a little bit darker than the other one. And again, I am leaving certain unpainted spots and gaps in order to suggest architectonical features. But I won't be too literal. I am just suggesting an architecture. I am not really painting it. Now I am getting closer to the ground, so I am gonna cool even a little bit more the mixture. Add some more cobalt blue and some more alizarin crimson. I keep going with the same mixture, and I want this. This is kind of the end of the street, so I want to enhance the idea that the sky is really lit by using a slightly dark mixture in this part. I'm gonna paint the cars right now. Well, I'm not gonna really paint them. I'm just going to suggest them, and it's not so difficult to do if you just treat this street as like a kind of like a surface that has some gaps in it, and those gaps are more or less kind of like rectangular unpainted areas, which suggest the idea that the sun is hitting on the upper part of some of those cars, and then just by leaving those rectangular gaps, your brain actually immediately tells you that those have to be cars because they are located in the center of the street, and you don't really need to be too detailed to suggest the idea of anything. You just have to bear in mind where you are and what you're doing in the place that you're doing it, and sometimes your brain just reconstructs what you are doing. It is really good by interpreting abstract images given a certain context, and keep it light, keep it efficient, keep it quick. Just be smart in the way you paint, in the way you lay the paint in the painting, and the way you leave some areas unpainted, and your brain will reconstruct the image, will give it much more complexity than what you actually painted. Now this part of the street, it's been illuminated by the sun, so I am leaving bigger areas unpainted, and the shadows are warm in this part of the street. There's also a lot of atmospheric light, so just keep that in mind. The air is illuminated in this area, so anything that it's over the horizon of this street is kind of warm, let's say, and anything that it's below that horizon, it's cooler. That way you create the illusion that light is going over the horizon and illuminating not only the buildings but the air itself. Now, something that I also like doing is if I have already laid some paint in the paper, then I come with a small brush with some water in it, and I just extend the painting in the paper, but using only water, so that you create kind of like a foggy extension of the shape you just painted. And you see, I am painting everything in one go. I am just being careful on when where to lay paint and where to leave spots unpainted, right? To suggest the architectural shapes of this space. And then I'm also using water to extend the paint here and there to also kind of like create like a foggy atmosphere, right? Wherever there are cars, there's steam in the air, and there's smoke in the air, and this will sometimes blur certain things and soften certain edges, so keep that in mind. I am just now gonna start to paint the building, which is a little bit closer to us, not the closest, but a little bit closer, which is quite in the shadows. The Metropolis building is the one that has this kind of funny dome on top of it. It's really popular in Madrid. It's one of the most recognizable buildings in the city. And I just used a mixture of cobalt blue, ultra blue, and some burnt sienna in order to make kind of like a dark gray. This dark gray, you can use it to make many architectural details or dark shadows, and if you add more blue, it will tip blue. If you add more burnt sienna, it will tip a little bit more brown or even purplish. And it's a mixture I use a lot. You could also add some alizarin crimson in the mixture to make it a little bit purplish, and it works really well when you flate some paint before to give the atmospheric color, and then you want to make some details and you need them kind of like a dark color. This mixture works really well. Again, because you can also modify it as you go. You can add more blue, more burnt sienna, more alizarin crimson, and you will make it then warmer or cooler depending on your needs. And again, I am painting, leaving some gaps in between to suggest architectural details. If I don't leave those gaps, if I don't leave those unpainted spots, it will be harder for me to get certain details that are important for the building to be understood. I will add later some dark details, either with a liner or with some small brush, but the more details we can suggest in the building using this I paint this, I don't paint this technique, the better. I'm going to suggest now some trees that are in this part of the street. I'm using the same mixture. It's kind of like a neutral gray. Also, some parts of the cars are clearly in the shadow, so if you just make this kind of rectangular spots, you will immediately make them read as the back side of the car. Now I am doing this building which kind of closes the composition, and it is closer to us, and I'm gonna make it in this using a mixture which is a little bit more purple.
mi niña favorita. No queda.
Now I am going to make yet a little bit more details in the whole painting. The basic shapes are already laid. Now I'm just gonna add some details. Again, with the mixture of the dark gray that I mentioned before, I just make it a little bit thicker, so it's darker. It's important to this dome. It's really dark when you see it, so it's important to show it like it is. And again, I am just not being too literal here. I am just this building also has two roofs on each side, and these roofs are quite dark, and I am just suggesting them, and I am just suggesting windows here and there, not really painting them. Now there's a really nice statue on top of this building, which is already quite representative or famous, let's say, and I have to paint it. I am going to take the tape out to see how the painting looks without it, and I will add some more details afterwards, but I just wanted to see how it already looks. And this is a great moment, right, when you take the tape out. Particularly, I really like making these sketches in this notebook that I have. The paper is quite let's say sensitive. I mean, if I always peel it off when I'm taking the tape out, I always take some paper with me. But it's a really nice paper to make these kind of quick sketches, and I just love how the sketch looks on the notebook when I take the tape out. It looks like you're looking through a window, right? And I normally always name them, these sketches, when I do them. And yeah, I think it already looks good. I'm gonna add more details later, but I think it already looks good. As a sketch study, I'm really happy with it. As I said, I am going to add some details. I'm gonna suggest the car lights using some Piero Scarlet. I was going to use a brush, but I think I'm gonna use a fountain pen that I have. This is not a good fountain pen, and this is why I use it with watercolor. You can just dip the tip of the fountain pen into your watercolor pond, and then take some paint straight with the fountain tip, and you can create some really, let's say, sharp details with it. I could also create kind of like a wash with watercolor and water, and then dip the pin of the tip of the fountain pen in it, and then use it as if I would use ink, but with watercolor. And so I've always been really fun in using fountain pens in my watercolors, and but sometimes you feel like you want to do everything using only watercolor, and then I came up with this idea of using a fountain pen too, and it's kind of fun. So if you have the chance, I would recommend playing with it. Now I'm using some Jaune Brillant, which is like a bright yellow from Holbein. It's a really opaque color, so I can just put it on top of the painting, and then it will kind of stay there. And it's a way for me to suggest car lights. I already suggested the back car lights, and I am just suggesting the front ones, right? Another way to create highlights is by using a cutter. I don't know what's the English name. This kind of blades that you use to cut paper, and you use one of those, and you just scrub the surface of the paper a little bit with care with it, and then by that you can create linear highlights. And it's really useful because sometimes you just missed, or you just decide that some area need to be lighter, or there's a highlight here and there that you painted over it already, and since it's really hard to cover watercolor with watercolor because there is a transparent medium, then you can always use these kind of tricks to just to create highlights where you thought you couldn't. I am now using a liner. This one is by Winsor and Newton. It's like using a fountain pen, but with a really, 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 really thin tip. And I'm not gonna overdo it. I'm just gonna make a few dark highlights here and there, and that's it. This painting feel like it's already over. I'm quite happy with it because it's just a sketch study, but I think it works well, and I can't wait to paint it bigger. I will do it one of these days. I always keep these notebooks as a test as a testing space. This is where I test colors, I test atmosphere, I test compositions, and I really like doing these sketches, these study sketches before doing the big thing, right? It helps a lot because you already know a lot about the painting when you get to do it in a bigger paper. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you liked it, and I hope that I helped you learn something, and I hope to see you soon.